New camera means new reviews. I'm pleased to announce the continuation of this series with Codename Sailor V Volume 2. This book is the final book in the Codename Sailor V series, and it goes into how Minalco becomes Sailor Venus as opposed to Sailor V. It also uncovers a lot of her background information from her time during the Silver Millennium. The Japanese version of the book has a slightly lighter color to the cover of it, while the American re-release, it looks like somebody's put this through an HD filter. A lot of the pages are nice, crisp, and clear. There's a little difference in color with the spine of the books. You can see that the Japanese has more red to it, while the English version has pink and blue. And the cover is even slightly different. This is the Japanese version, and as you can see, Minalco is very pale. While in the American release, they put in a lot more shading, which just looks absolutely fabulous. And again, Kodansha has an appropriate rating on this, ages 13 and up. This is not a kid's book. The translations have gotten even better, too, but we'll get to that in a bit. The first few pages have some color illustrations, and again, you're actually getting a lot better with the American release. This, by the way, is one of my favorite pictures ever of Codename Sailor V. With the Japanese release, some of the pictures look a little bit washed out. While the American release, it's done more in HD, and you get a finer grade with all the details. And look at that, that's just amazing. This is crucial with some of the images in the book. The second color picture has the entire cast from Codename Sailor V. The Japanese release, it looks really faded and washed out. I mean, this is not even coming up properly in the camera. And this is an HD camera, by the way. Whereas the American re-release, they did a much better job with it. I mean, here you can see some of the better details, and there's actually a few extra characters that you can see. This is most of the cast of the comic. And here you can see that Minalco's mother also has pink hair. Lots of pink hair notes if you go to moonsisters.org. The next page has an early shot of Artemis. This was drawn when the series was still new. And the first page is still on a very shiny page. I'm not sure why they did this with the American release, but this does continue with some of the Sailor Moon books as well. Now I want to point out something about the art. Some of Codename Sailor V didn't come out until Sailor Moon was already at the Super S arc. The two series were drawn side by side. So although this takes place 2 years before Super S, you can see a Super S style of drawing in some of the pages. This book is a must-have if you are a fan of Sailor V and Sailor Venus. This goes into a lot of her history and explains a lot of Minalco's character. The translations, again, are really close this time around, so the translator got her character really super close to the original. So hardly any changes were made at all. The only big change that I can spot is that they renamed Ace Keitel Phantom Ace. That's not actually a bad thing, though. That's just a translation of Ace Keitel, much in the way that Tuxedo Common and Tuxedo Mask are the same. There's a lot more action this time around, too, and some of the battle scenes do get a little bit gruesome, so again, this is not a children's comic. This is definitely for an older audience. Keep your eyes open if you get the book, because there's a lot of spoiler instances here and there in the comic. I mean, here you can see Chibiusa and the Outer Senshi. There's going to be a lot of spoilers in this one. And like I said, the action's a little more gruesome. This is Codename Sailor V slicing in half Wan. I mean, that's pretty brutal. This is not a shock value comic, but there are a lot of scenes you definitely don't want little ones seeing, so please keep this for older audiences. There's also some educational spots in here. You end up learning a lot about Japanese culture, and there's even a spot about the Red Cross, which is a very nice touch. Also, this is something I've been kind of toying with for Moon Sisters, but I think I'm going to get your reaction first. Now, Ace Kaitao is an idol outside of being, well, Phantom Ace. And he kind of reminds me of somebody. Let me get a better picture. There we go, that's a little bit better. Now, Ace claims to be an idol that wants to fight for the right for women to be who they want and do all they want to. And Ace has, although this came out in the early to mid-90s, Ace has been recently, compared to somebody else in the media. Now keep in mind, this was drawn in the 90s, and this is not based on any current cultural references. But, you know, I just wonder. Well, you can decide for yourself. You can leave a comment and tell me if I'm just seeing things. This is definitely the comic to have if you are a Sailor Moon fan, too. Because, like I said, there's a lot of spoiler instances, and there's also plenty that explains stuff you see in the next comic for Sailor Moon. Also, we have our translation notes in the back, which are extremely helpful. This is good for if you're learning Japanese, or if you're confused about Japanese culture. The back page, we have a lot of spoilers. Now, this is just an ad for the next few books that'll take us through next year, but I'm counting this as a spoiler page because we have some characters that we're not supposed to see just yet. And clearly we're not in Sailor V, you know, specifically this one here. Now, the Japanese version also has its own ad in the back, but it's slightly different. The Japanese ads have a lot more caricatures to it, a lot of chibi characters, a lot more stars, whereas in America, Codename Sailor V is pitched to an older audience, so a lot of this is clearly gone. What's interesting, though, is that the final Sailor V book in Japan ends with this little spoiler for the short stories books. Now, you see the one right here that's Usagi and Mamoru in bed? Well, this is actually the book where you see parallel Sailor Moon. And trust me, you are going to want this book. Now, if you've not been able to find this book in stores, there is a link at the bottom of this video where you can buy the English book legally. I do not support bootlegging. You must see this book, and you must get it legally. One more thing before I shut off the camera is that while the American books all have their covers printed directly to the book itself, the Japanese have extra slip covers. These slip covers are pretty rare now, and I've actually seen a few sell by themselves on eBay. I don't know why you'd separate the book, but go figure. Some of these have some additional artwork, and even notes in Japanese about the author herself. Also, the actual books have a little pale cover to them. This one's in magenta. So there you have it. Please buy this book legally. Please use the link below.